Okay, so to make your blood, you're going to need some food dye. You need some red food dye first of all, obviously for the blood, and a little bit of food dye just to help darken it up a little bit. You're also going to need gelatin. So obviously the stuff in the supermarket isn't going to be quite as good quality as the stuff you'd get in the special effects store, but it's perfect just for experimenting or trying out yourself for an amateur Halloween costume. I've used it before plenty of times and it works fine. You're also going to need some glycerin. So these two are both from Dr. Oetker. The gelatin I have is in powder form. You can get it in sheet form, but it's better if you can get it in powder form. It's just for you know, measuring out amounts and stuff like that. This is also Dr. Oetker. So you can get the glycerin in bigger amounts from drugstores, but this amount is fine if it's just for your own costume. You're not going to use too much. You need a bowl that's okay for the microwave. So just like a Tupperware thing like this, and you're also going to need water as well. And then to stir everything, you want to make sure you have something that's not metal. So I just use a plain old straw. The metal can degrade the quality of your mixture, so it's better to just go with something plastic. So to start off with, I'm just going to get some of my glycerin and I'm going to apply about a teaspoon to start off with. Maybe a little bit more, so like maybe a teaspoon and a half. And then I'm going to put in equal amounts of water, so about a teaspoon and a half. I'm just going to drop about a teaspoon of gelatin into the mix. So roughly the ratio would be 1 part gelatin to 1.5 water and 1.5 or 1.5 glycerin. And then just mix everything into a fine paste until the whole mixture is totally mixed. So the reason for the glycerin, people were wondering before, the glycerin stabilizes the formula. So unlike normal like, you know, strawberry jelly and stuff like that you get in the supermarket, that's already pre-made, it'll be a little bit more solid, and it also helps prevent shrinkage of your gelatin once it sets. So just like that. Obviously if you need bigger amounts, you try and keep it the same ratio, but when you're just using it for Halloween costume, you're not going to need too much in one go. So after you've stirred it for a minute or so, or depending on how much you've made, but once you have it nice and mixed, it's time to pop it into the microwave. Because I'm using such a small amount at this stage, just to show you how to make it, I'm only going to do this in bursts of 5 seconds to get the formula melted. So if it was a larger amount, like say a half a cup or something like that, you could do it in bursts of 10 seconds and 20 seconds, but always do less than you think and have a look at it. And if you find that the granules need a little bit longer to melt, put it back in for just a couple of more seconds or 5-10 seconds depending on how much you make. Be very careful with the formula at this stage. If it's too hot, it will burn the skin, and it will really burn the skin badly. So you don't want to let it get that hot either. If it gets beyond boiling point or up to boiling point, it will degrade the actual mixture. Pop this back in just for a couple more seconds. So once your gelatin is nice and melted and it's liquid, it's time to start adding in your food dye to make it the blood colour. Or if you wanted to use it for a facial prosthetic, you could start adding in some makeup, some foundation of your own skin tone. But for this video, I'm just going to do make it into blood. You want to just add a couple of drops of food dye. So I don't go overboard, I'm going to pour a little bit into my cap first and then pop it in. And then just stir it around and check out the opacity of it, and if you think it looks a little bit too transparent or translucent, you can pop a teeny bit more food dye. So it's really just eyeballing it. And then if you feel like it needs to be mixed a little bit more, You can always pop it in the microwave literally for just a second though, so it doesn't overheat it. So to get the different degrees or different types of blood, you'd have fresh blood, which would be pretty much very like this. It would be a very light coloured blood, but the problem with food dye is it tends to be that kind of almost cherry or orange kind of colour, and you want the blood to be a little bit more blue based, like true blood. So what I'm going to do is get a little bit of my blue food colouring. So I'm literally just going to pop my straw into the food dye and let just one drop go in. Just want to darken it a little bit. Don't worry too much if it looks kind of dark here. It's more like how you're more concerned with how it looks on the skin. So you can just test that out. And this is definitely looking more like real blood to me anyhow. And then pop it on the back of your skin. And you have a much more realistic colour blood. So it's just not quite as translucent looking as this one, and it is a bit more blue based, like real blood. So that's how you make fresh blood, and then just let it drip like this, and as you can see in this one, it's pretty much set. Like, that was the first drip I made, and it doesn't matter what I do now, that's going to stay in place. And then after another maybe 10 minutes or so, that's going to be solid, so I'll be able to touch it, and it will stay like that all night, as long as I don't get too hot. But you need to get really hot for it to melt, so I wouldn't worry about it. And that's perfect. And then depending on the different stages of your gelatin, so as it starts to set, you can start using it for different types of blood. So for aged blood, where it gets more congealed, you can use it when it's more towards its jelly state, like I did for stuffing up the wound in my Chelsea Smile tutorial. And then once it's set, as this is a formula I made a little bit earlier, it's a bit darker, so this would be more for congealed blood I'd use it for, but you can see it just peels. This probably could do with setting for a little bit longer, but I just want to show you how easily it peels out of your container. And then you can store it in your freezer for several weeks for use at a later date. All you have to do is pop it back into your microwavable bowl, stick it back in the microwave for a couple of seconds, and you have it in its liquid form again, and you're ready to use it. So this is one that I have had in the fridge for about a week or two since I started doing my Halloween tutorials this year, and I have used this twice now, and it's perfect. So it's real solid, good, sturdy gelatin. I mean, I'm pulling at it there and it's not breaking unless you really yank. So that's why it's really handy. If you mess up, you can always just melt it back down again and redo your mold, or redo whatever shapes you want to do or whatever. So that's why I love working with this stuff. And the best thing about it is that once it's set, it's not going to drip onto your clothes for the night. So you could get dressed after it's set and you don't have to worry about it going everywhere. And also, to help it dry a little bit quicker, you could use your hairdryer on a very low setting, on the cool setting. Make sure it's on the cool setting, because heat will just make it melt. But if it's cool, it'll help it dry a little bit quicker. So cool air is definitely good. And then just to take it off, I'll just show you here. So this one is pretty much dry or set. It probably could do a bit longer, but it just peels off the skin like so, and then that's it pretty much off. Be careful with your food dye though when you're using the blood at the very start, because food dye does stain. So just don't wear anything very important or like really white or anything like that. And then one thing you could do when it's in a liquid state as well, you could also add in some oatmeal or some muesli or something like that, just to make it more kind of dirty and gritty looking for different effects, and just play around with it. So another thing you could do is maybe get some like Rice Krispies and mash them up and put flour or something like that into it. You can just try loads of stuff and see how it works. So I hope this helps out with your costumes for this year, and I'll see you really soon for my next video. Thanks a million, guys. Slán.